This is a nice little conversation with the CMO Circle. I've got a couple of people joining me today. I'd love for you guys to give each other or yourselves a little introduction and then a teaser into your group.
Well, I'm Nicola. I've been in this world of marketing for 24 years, always focused on startup and scale-ups. And I finished up full-time work about 2.5 years ago, and I now have, I guess, a portfolio career. So I'm partner at Growth & Co, where we do advisory work and recruitment and the marketing space. I do fractional marketing work, and I also run a couple of communities, of which, of course, my favorite is the CMO Circle.
My name's James Hamlin. I've also been working in the marketing space for a similar amount of time as Nicola, so you can get a gist of how old I am and how long I've been doing this. Again, working in a much more of a fractional way these days. So doing a lot of work in the agency space, which is really exciting and different for me, as well as across fractional CMOing, mentoring, advisory, and also some investing, which is new for me. Co-founded the CMO Circle with Nicola, which is a community that we run together. And I also run another community as well, which I won't plug on the side.
So do you want to give people an idea, a little teaser about the group and why you started it and how it's sort of developing now?
Well, I can talk a little bit about how we started it. So if you told me 3 years ago that I would be running a community with the James Hamlin, I would have gone, I don't think so, because he was my absolute arch rival in the tutoring world. So I was at my tutor. James was at Tutorful. We were both CMOs. We were in a couple of the same marketing groups. Neither of us ever really shared anything because I was paranoid that James was going to steal my best ideas and vice versa. And it was only when James posted on LinkedIn to say that he was leaving and moving on to do other things, and I was too, but I hadn't announced it, that I thought, I'm just going to give him a call because I'm quite intrigued to who this James is. So rang him and we started chatting, realized that we got on very well and we had similar views on the world, similar values, which I think is super important whenever you're going to work with someone. And at the time, there was a lot of people moving into the fractional space, which is what we're both exploring. So we set up a very small fractional group. I think there were about 30 members, James. What we found is that with a couple of the other marketing groups we were in, there was an agenda by the person running that group for their own business. And so it was very controlled. And as time went on, we realized that actually what we wanted was a safe space for marketing leaders where there wasn't a requirement to be in a certain way or to follow a certain rule book. It was a safe space for you to share and learn from your peers, get support, get advice, learn, give advice as well. And so we expanded the fractional group into a broader just marketing leaders, CMOs, due to the demand of that. And it's really just grown organically from there. I mean, I don't think either of us had an idea that it would get to where it has. And certainly when we first started, we weren't thinking about lots of in-person events. So it's really just grown based on what we believe the group needs and wants and feedback from the group.
And it sounds to me like, I'm a member as well, so I can declare that, right? It sounds to me like it's something that you're both really interested in and also have got this community leader perspective, which can help shape people or give them right direction moving forward, or potentially matchmake if they need someone else, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I first started on my startup journey, I was an event promoter. So I used to put on concerts and events of quite a large scale. That's a separate podcast for that. So I definitely come from that particular world. But I think, look, what's different now is that marketers didn't historically know each other. We had no real reason to. The world came to us, right? We'd be sat there with the queue of the marketing agency sat outside the door, right? And that was the major change that I found. It's like I wouldn't know Nicola or Danny or these types of peers, and it was amazing. And versus other folks in sales or agencies, there'd be forums for that. And that's been one of the most incredible realizations, that, as Nicola said, you have a safe space for similar types of people with similar types of experiences, similar types of challenges. Now they are working on slightly different things because the market is so different to what it was. But again, just an incredible place for building, learning, and just one of the major highlights of the things that we've done recently, to just be connected with so many incredible people that we simply wouldn't know before.
I think the other thing as well is that it's quite lonely at the top. So when you're part of a marketing team, you've got your VP marketing, your CMO, your peers to really support you. And when you're leading that team, you can't possibly know the answer to everything because we'd all have to have had 250 years of marketing experience, and it's changing so quickly, particularly at the moment. And so often it's just having a group to be able to bounce ideas off, or to ask if anyone's had that experience before. And I started to see the value of this when I joined Go Cardless probably about 9 years ago. And suddenly I was the only marketing person in the business, and I was the most senior marketing leader, and everyone was looking to me. And I realized that I really needed that support from other people in a similar space. So I just reached out to other CMOs in the fintech world. I'd never worked in fintech. I'd never worked in B2B. There were so many unknowns to me. And I was just overwhelmed with how supportive they all were. And I think you have this concern that, everyone's going to want to keep everything to themselves. But actually, people are so open to sharing and giving you advice and support. So I think that was the first time I really realized that whilst I'd built lots of communities in the past for the audiences I was targeting, actually I could really benefit from it in my own career progression.
Absolutely. And I think the point around loneliness is a really, really valid one. Again, we've been in those board meetings, we've been in those situations, and being forced to come up with all the answers all of the time. Our teams are potentially more junior than us also. We have other peers in the C-suite as well. But again, it's a different perspective. And I think that point around peers with that level of seniority, that also we're fine to express these things now, right? Because we also appreciate we're all at a similar age, similar stage, right? And it's a vulnerability that you wouldn't have necessarily seen before. Again, as Nicola said, we're all just struggling to keep up right now, right? The rate of change is so vast. The rate of upskilling is so fast. And the comfort that you find in the fact that, like, look, we cannot compress all this information into our heads. It's not possible. But the amount of people that have had a similar experience that are willing to share their time, it's just so comforting and such a stress reliever, because, look, actually, the situations that I find myself in, I don't need to go away and do a 16-week course on this, or, do a job for 2 years. There are people that have shared similar experiences, and also from vastly different channels and different areas, to B2B, B2C thing. But it's the similarities that just, again, strike me. It's so encouraging. And again, such a different approach, and so that we apply to work today.
And I think you just realize you're not on your own, and that it's not just you suffering in certain ways. So I think so often I would say most marketeers have imposter syndrome, as do most people. But, you come back from a really challenging board meeting or budget reset, and yes, of course, your friends and family are there for you, but they don't necessarily understand, and you really don't want to bore them with the intricacies of marketing. But being able to dive into the community and just say, I've just come out of this meeting, and I think I really don't think I did myself justice. I'm being challenged on these areas. Help. And then just to have a pile of people diving in going, I've had a similar situation. Sounds like you did a great job. I don't know how you could have done it differently. Or next time, perhaps, maybe this is something you could think about. Or if you want to jump on a call with me, I'm free tomorrow. There's just that whole network of ensuring that you've got the stability and the reassurance to keep going. Because we all have those days when you're like, I just don't know that I can do this.
I think one of the unique things around your community more specifically is people are so reactive, and they want to be, and also proactive. In a number of different groups I'm in, it's harder for people because of time constraint, but in your group, people seem to want to get on a call straight away or make themselves available. And maybe that's a unique sign to your community feel and that you've fostered. Do you think there's like a connective tissue that you've engineered by accident, or do you think it's more just a way that people have come together?
I'm glad you mentioned groups and communities, because they are different things. And look, it's never been easier to create a group. We get added to them on a daily basis, right? And they are brilliant for what they do, but there is a delineation between that and the community side. And I think for us, we thought about, look, we don't have time to be in 20 different groups that have a few messages here and there. And it's trying to monitor them becomes a stress in itself. So we believe, like, if you can build one place that is the only place that people need to be part of, again, that's a stress reliever, right? And again, there are other groups that do a very specific thing around, for example, job hunting and job posting and stuff, and that's great. And I think groups like that should endeavor to just be that, not be part of the discussion. So I think, look, it's definitely been something that we've put lots and lots of time in, because we believe that the reward and the benefit for all is worth it. We believe that. And I think trying to build up that distinction between community and group is something that we work pretty hard on. And the members of the community work pretty hard on that as well.
I think also we've got to that nice size of around 350 where there are always experts in each of the different areas that people want to find out about. So just this morning, someone said, we're moving to a product-led growth motion. I've not done this before. Can anyone help? And I think within 20 minutes, there's a call being organized with 3 or 4 people who've done it, and then more people that want to learn about it. And one of the things that James and I do is try and keep an eye on what are the core themes coming out. And when we see that there's real interest about something, okay, how can we turn this into a useful webinar event? So that might be with AI. There was so much chat about AI, and there was so much knowledge in the group. And so it's like, right, okay, well, let's harness this and use it as an opportunity through webinars to start to discuss this, to upskill people, but also for some individuals who put so much time and effort into learning about it to be able to show off their skills and potentially also build out their own consultancy on it as well. We've got one coming up on influencers, because again, it was a topic that was highlighted. Lots of people with some great experiences across B2C and B2B, and lots of interest in having more of a roundtable discussion. Other scenarios, we've had discussions about leadership and building like a really high performing team. So we're actually running that as a panel, and we're bringing in some external experts from like the HR side as well to add some additional value. So it's really about keeping our eye on what everyone's really interested in learning about, and who are the right people in the community to be able to talk about that, along with what are the questions within that we want to be bringing out. And for me, it's so valuable because I'm always learning, and I can see, okay, right, I have a gap in my knowledge here. Is anyone else interested? Right, bam, here's a webinar. So when people say, gosh, how do you manage to organize all these webinars? A lot of it's quite selfish. It's just my way of learning and development.
That was one of the core learnings, even more recently with your successful AI sort of workshop. It's a webinar stroke workshop for a lot of people. Even sort of 3 weeks later, people are asking more questions and actually getting a chance to try out some of the prompts, etc. So it's one of those things. Is it something that you're good at, but do you see it as like one of the most positive aspects of the community?
100%. What I love seeing is the feedback afterwards. So, and Danny, thank you so much. You were fantastic on that AI webinar, and you're actually one of the core reasons why I thought we should kick off, because of the work you've done in that space. But we're still getting people saying, I've just watched your AI webinar. I've just been using it for prep for an interview, for really analyzing some of my performance results. It's been super helpful in how I'm thinking about SEO now. So we're constantly getting feedback. And even from some of our older webinars, like people going back and looking at our one on product marketing because they're moving into a role where that's more important. So it's also, a lot of it's evergreen, so you can keep referring back to it. I just sent someone one that we did on route to CMO, which we did over a year ago. And they're like, oh my goodness, I thought it was all about skill set. I didn't realize so much of it was about working in that leadership team and really understanding the other functions. So the feedback that we get from how people have taken away the insights and used them in their own role means that we just want to keep going. Plus, I get so much value out of them, as I said. So I'm permanently using my insights and also referencing them and sharing them with some of the people I coach too. So it's such a valuable resource.
Look, we've definitely changed our strategy on it. We used to keep our webinar recordings for members only. For some instances, we may do that. If there are specific community-only topics, we do that. But then also, not only for the people that were sharing this information, but also the people that were ingested it. We started to spread it a lot further wide. So you can find majority of our webinars now on YouTube. And we get people outside of the community that want to join for the webinars, and that's 100% fine. Sometimes they want to join the community as well, and they're not quite fit and they can't necessarily do that. But just because the content is so good, people give up their time so freely, and ultimately it's a good opportunity for this stuff to become evergreen. So that will continue to be the strategy, I think. And yeah, it's something that's going to continue to grow.
It's also really helpful to sometimes share some of these webinars with people that are senior leaders but not in marketing, particularly in sales or in product, because I think they can get a lot of insight into how marketing works, and particularly in the B2B side, upskilling salespeople in how best to work with marketing is really valuable.
One of the core aspects I sort of see with a lot of the sort of the events, especially more the online one, the webinars, is you actually get to see the workings out of marketers' minds. And very often your C-suite colleagues don't get to see it or don't often have the time for it. So I can completely see that quite a lot of people could use it to feed out to their colleagues, or potentially when they're working on like fractional work, which is one of the important areas of your community, they can share it or leverage it and share some of the tactics or some of the strategies that people use.
And that's why I'm really excited about an event we're doing in May, because I think it's really important to have this safe space for marketers, but it's also really important that we bring some of these functional communities together every now and then so we can all learn from each other. So we're doing a session on moving across the C-suite because we want to give everyone the opportunity to be thinking about what's next for my career. And that could be, I'm VP, I want to go to CMO. It could be, I want to move to a CRO role, a COO role. It could be, this is where I'm happy, or I want to go and do my own consultancy. But I think it's really important that we're thinking about all options for career progression and giving everyone the chance to explore that in the best possible way. And I think there's so much support in the group. You know, if someone says, oh, I'm thinking about going fractional, right, we've done webinars on moving to fractional, or thinking about setting up my own agency, going freelance, moving sideways from B2C to B2B. And I think that's one of the loveliest things we see in the community, is that support when people are thinking about not just career progression, but also about different roles. And just to switch tactics a bit, I think, James, one of the things that I've been most delighted about with the community is seeing how some of the members have actually ended up getting roles which have been highlighted by other members. And in fact, some of them working together and seeing some really beautiful working relationships develop. And that could be as an agency, it could be as a one-off piece of work, and it could be as a full-time hire.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the feedback we receive, like often on a daily basis from folks, is just brings you to tears sometimes. Just some of the things that people have gone through and how the community has helped them, and then so as a end result, they've achieved these things. And you just to be a little part of that is just an incredible feeling. That's hard to, you'd like to bottle it and sell that, but you can't. So again, it's the finding those fits, finding those relationships, just so important, and long may that continue.
Yeah. Business matchmaking. I'm terrible at romantic matchmaking. Far, far better in a marketing capacity.
We'll definitely leave that one in. So obviously you've said if you could bottle it, you would. What are the other great things about being seen and known as a community leader?
I think one of my favorites is in our in-person events, seeing people that maybe haven't been out networking for a long time, or it's something that is a real blocker for them, seeing them come along to our events and really thrive and flourish and enjoy them. I think at pretty much every event, I've had a couple of people say to me, I'm really nervous about coming. And I've said, look, James and me are there. If you spend your entire evening with us, that's delightful for us. And on every single occasion, I think after about the first 3 minutes, I don't see them again for the rest of the night because they are just out chatting and about. So I try not to take that personally, that actually they thought I was the most boring person in the room. But it's so lovely to see that confidence build and like, actually, this isn't the scary thing I thought it was. This is just a group of people who are really easy to talk to, understand all of my challenges, the world I work in, and that I'm actually having a really nice time with them. And one of the favorite pieces of feedback I got was someone was saying, my wife was asking, why on earth do I want to go to a marketing event tonight? It was in the run up to Christmas. And he said, well, it's like hanging out with a great group of friends. Why would I not want to go? And that's what I think is the best thing. And I personally have made some wonderful friendships through it, outside of James, who is obviously my absolute favorite. But yeah, I've met some wonderful people and I feel so privileged to be able to spend time with them. So when we're organizing events, even though I do tend to have a mini meltdown and hope that everything goes okay, and James is brilliant at keeping me calm, I really look forward to them because it's just an opportunity to spend time with people that I really care about.
I would echo all of that sentiment. And again, the relationships you're able to build are just hopefully everlasting and so enriching. And it's something that I hadn't really thought about because I'd spent a lot of my career going to events all around the world and having to try to, pick up a business card stack and somehow do that. And I always found it really, really hard. But the classic thing is you see these other CMOs who you ultimately think are more amazing than you, working rooms and stuff. But then ultimately it's the conversation all the time of so many of us are like, we're natural introverts at heart, right? So to be able to come into events. So like we were up at MadFest last week. And again, we had a kind of mini meet up there of mini group members, and there was probably about 15, close to 20 of us. The amount of people who said, look, I will come to this event more if I know there are other people there. It just didn't exist before, right? And then when you speak to the event organizers and you talk to sponsors about it, it's just like, this is just such a net positive thing. But even for people to be in a situation where it's like, right, just one other person, and they could be from a completely different industry, right? We're now a two and we're more powerful like that. So that's really, really, really powerful. And, you know, probably one of the best things about it in the fact that you're able to hear those stories from those people, and you can kind of see those people thriving in a situation that you've helped become a part of.
And I think, you know, coming back to that event piece, like what I loved last year was that a load of us went to the MailChimp conference. And so we just had meetup point after each talk. And it was so fun to have a group of people that you could then discuss that talk with, especially when there's quite polarizing opinions, you know, when you've got someone like Mark Ritson. So you come out of that talk and then we could all have quite a good discussion debate. What were the key takeaways? What did we think of this point? And then, you know, you're off to the next one. And sometimes if there were two going on at the same time, divide and conquer, come back with what you've learned. And it was nice to have that, again, coming back to it, that safe space where you knew there were going to be people. You weren't on your own. You weren't sitting there going, hey, I need to go and find some people to talk to. There was a ready-made group for you.
It must have been nice with MadFest more specifically because there was a couple of speakers, right, from the group.
Even better. There. You get the support as well. People at the front who you know have got your back and want you to do brilliantly.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also such a team philosophy to it, right? And also in a way, the way I feel about it, if one of us is speaking, we're all speaking, right? And they're across both days, and it's such a big morale booster and chance to support and amplify socially and all that type of stuff. And again, it's, you know, people are apprehensive about speaking and hard to get the opportunities. It just goes to show, just go for it. You know, with the marketing knowledge you have, you can really be a success. So yeah, that's another really cool part.
One area that I think a lot of people don't see is the hardship and the difficult parts of being like a community leader. How do you both work on like the guidance of good and bad behavior within your community? I know you don't have to go into specific examples, but how do you come up with and how do you speak to members if they've been great or haven't been so great?
What an interesting one. Well, obviously anyone that said they wanted a zip on their hoodie was immediately put into the naughty box, and that was a hot one to discuss. I think it's about having that frank conversation with them. So if there is a post that goes up that isn't suitable for some reason, it's not about just removing it. It's about explaining the why behind it, because it's not always that clear to that person. So we always try and actually have a phone conversation about it and explain the reason behind it, because we want it to feel like a space where you can share what you think is appropriate within that group. And sometimes there's blurred lines of what is and isn't appropriate. And particularly in the current environment we're in, there's some sensitivities there. And so I find as long as you are very clear on the ask and why, we've never had a problem with it, and it's not happened again. And often it's just people not thinking through things. It's like a spur of the moment, I want to share this, I'm going to post this, and they're not thinking through how that might impact others. So that to me is really key. I would never go in and just delete posts. It's always about having that conversation first and leaving it up to the individual.
Yeah, and I think we built a platform where people do come to us, and there are disadvantages to that when you're in the midst of busy stuff, but they will come to us as opposed to things kind of mushroom clouding out of control, which is amazing, and long may that continue. And ultimately they kind of know that we kind of will take the approach that we take. But then also I would say that it is a community that is so many work driven people that it naturally stays on topic 98% of the time, right? And that's not really by what we've done. It's by basically understanding the audience and sort of saying, look, you know, there are channels now online for you to talk about everything you want to talk about. This particular audience is incredibly time poor, right? That wants to basically keep in that particular zone, keep this conversation at this level and at this cadence. So that self-regulates it pretty effectively as well. So we have all that. And again, some of the things that Nicola's talked about, you're talking about incredibly infrequent versus other potential communities. This could be a flashpoint on a daily basis for us. And, as we scale, it may change. But again, it's something that I think we navigate successfully.
And
I think that's the difference between a group and a community often. The group will find it harder to police or self-police, whereas the community tend to understand the rules of engagement and understand actually that everyone else is time poor or time sensitive. So I think that's a clear sign sometimes that you're on the right track with a community.
I think we've actually had to step in 3 or 4 occasions over nearly 18 months. So very, very infrequent, as you said. It's pretty well self-moderated. So we're very lucky in that aspect. I think the other thing is really understanding that different people will want different levels of engagement with the community. And it also depends on what's going on in their life. You'll have people that are super active for a while and then disappear for 6 months. And every now and then, James and me just check in, is everything okay? And sometimes it's like, oh, I've just had a baby. Wow, okay, we understand. Or I've just started a new role. But I think it's understanding that the community plays a different part depending on what stage you're at in your life.
Is there any particular hard parts that the members or external people just don't get to see or aren't aware of that will help people understand how communities are shaped or how actually it takes a long time and effort and energy to manage and push things forward?
You kind of answered your own question by saying that, right? It's if you have someone that you're working with on this that is aligned with your vision, and you have a vision and you want to work towards what this can be, you work then very hard to try to achieve that. And everything that is required to do takes time, right? So I would say that the sheer side of it is the time. And a lot of it's good time, right? When you're hearing from people and stuff, but it's the sheer, because the tools that are at people's disposal, people would be like, well, I can do one of these, and you can, right? Set up a little group with the people that you play five-a-side football with. It's easy. But if you are part of our webinars and you just realize the amount of prep, the amount of structure, the amount of thought that goes into it, because again, we've been part of so many things that haven't quite hit the mark. We know what's required, and it's just the sheer time to do that. But then also the time that's required to crowdsource people to participate in things and follow conversations and when conversations go this way. So I'd say time is probably the key and the hardest part of it. But then also understanding, like, you see a conversation and you're like, right, do I go in now? Do I wait? Do I see? Do I? And this can also often be happening when you're in the middle of doing something else, right? So that's, that's another challenge as well. So yeah, I'd say time is probably the biggest one.
I think it's also delivering on your promises. I think so often in other groups, the conversation happens like, oh, we should do a session on this. We should do an event on this. It'd be great if we could all get together. And I think what James and I try and do is when we say, let's do this, we actually do it. So if there's a lot of conversation about influence and we say, let's do an event, well, it needs to happen. Otherwise, don't say it. And then if we're going to do that event, we've got to make it worthwhile. So we're going to keep that bar high, which is why that prep piece is so important. We don't let any webinar go ahead unless we've actually done a run through beforehand. Everyone knows what their role is. And then even when it's running, it's making sure that people are engaged in chat, that they're getting the right links. We've got the right follow-up email. We've got the recording done. So it's that whole end-to-end piece. And even more so with in-person events, it's even the little details like making sure we've got name badges so people are aware of who everyone is. And even just making sure that everyone in the room is comfortable. So when people come in, do they naturally gravitate towards a group because they know people, or is it their first time and we need to actually make sure that we go and introduce them to people? At the end, is everyone okay getting home? Has everyone got all their stuff? Lost property? Like all these little things that people just don't think about. And thank God, James is always super organised about food and drinks. If you don't have that, there's a major issue. And it's the one thing I always forget about. So, James, help, we haven't ordered pizza. It's all right. It's on its way. So I think also finding a great co-founder who you can really rely on is amazing. How people can run communities on their own, I don't know. As I've said before, James is my rock when I have my panic attacks or my little moments before events kick off, because I think that's the other thing. People don't see how nervous and stressed I get beforehand. That's all down to, that just gets stuck with James, unfortunately for James.
it's kind of the point that I started the podcast with. If you sort of grow up in a world where you're managing events featuring rappers, that's a level of stress you can help with. It's like, yeah, you marketers, you're fine, right? It's a lot easier to manage. And I guess I just want to add a point to what we said previously. It's like one of the community challenges is that we talk about and think about a lot is that the 350 members that are part of it, they have different states that change, right? So they may be full-time in a job with one brand. They may be out of work. They may be doing multiple fractional things. They may be pivoting into an agency. They may be doing other things. And in its understanding that the states and the seasons that those marketers are in, they will change, but they will then have different requirements, right? So it's how do you land on something that then provides the right amount of utility for all of those people, but then understanding that they'll change states. So say, for example, if you're absolutely chock-a-block, working with a brand, working with a team in an office, like you may want to come on once every 2 weeks and just pick out the highlights. That's fine. I absolutely appreciate that. But that comes at the expense of then overall engagement versus someone who's very engaged, wants to drive conversations and wants answers instantly. Like, right, I'm about to go into a board meeting. I don't know anyone. Right, okay, bang. So that's quite a tricky line to tread. And I don't think anyone has the answer for that fully. And the way that we try to support that is newsletters, notebook LLMs, follow-up podcasts, links to points to get to people, because we know it's crazy. You know, the volume of messages is vast and very hard to keep up to date with. But it's, in a way, the engagement is the key. So I think that's a tricky one. And I flip-flop on the answers and the solutions to this on a daily basis. But I think that's always a tricky line to tread. And when you speak to individual members about it, they have a point of view. But then when you have a chat to them and sort of unwind it, everybody gets it. But then we're human nature. We want to jump on our phone, find the exact point we want, and then go off. And how you navigate that is always challenging.
I think the one other thing to just build on that is keeping it fresh as well. And so we've been experimenting with some different formats for events as well. So the most recent one we did was some round tables where people could share challenges, troubleshoot, problem solve together, which worked really well. But if we did that every time, it would get stale. So it's how do we keep mixing it up and bringing in new formats that are going to work for the broader group when everyone's got slightly different needs.
Completely. One thing that you both called out, and one thing I'd say that you're uniquely good at is understanding that people can't always be super engaged. They have a lot going on. You've really thought about the delivery mechanism of highlighting the community, highlighting the achievements, like linking out to other people's work, stuff like that. So it's something that I think you have done uniquely well, whereas you don't necessarily see that in 95% of other communities.
And we definitely don't want to be precious. It's a space to highlight everyone's great work, including your fabulous newsletter, Dan.
Thank you very much. You up for a quick fire round?
Sure.
What are your top 3 goals then for the CMO Circle?
Who's going? You or me?
You can go.
I would say the big audacious goal for the community is it helps everybody within that community be in work with the right level of work that they want. That's the audacious goal.
That everyone has a CMO Circle hoodie.
Nicely won by you
without
both
a
now.
zip. And I think the third one is that we keep the engagement and we get the right balance of growing the community, but in the right way. I think you see so many communities struggle as they get too large and people break off and go off and create subgroups. And it's about how do we get that right balance of quality and quantity. And we were talking to the CRO roundtable about this, and I think we don't want to cap it, but we're certainly not chasing numbers. We get asked a lot by potential sponsors, how many do you want it to be? It's like, it's not about numbers. This is about keeping that engaged group, and whether that stays at 350, it grows. We expect there'll be some natural churn as well, that it's still got that engagement and the support, and it's offering the value. It's just got to keep offering value to people.
Completely agree. One of my hypotheses is at the moment people aren't necessarily looking to go and do a mini MBA or go and attend a big conference because it's not really specific to them. Whereas with groups and communities more specifically, you learn as you go along. You can learn from directly from peers who you might not know of or might not work at the biggest brand, but are living and breathing what you're doing. Do you see like the community actually helping people to grow and be like a learning resource versus the more traditional side of L&D basically?
I think there's absolutely a place for both. And what's great is a lot of people within the group have done some of these courses, the mini MBAs, the courses, and they'll come back and share some of the learnings from those. And depending on what you're looking for in the stage of career, that might be the right thing for you. I think what we can do is provide bite-sized learning opportunities, be that one-to-one, so direct experience, or be it like, in a nutshell, we're going to do 101 on influencer marketing or product marketing. And we can also be super reactive to what's going on in the environment. I think often you find with these courses, because of when they were written, they can be slightly out of date. And so we're trying to keep it as current as possible.
And I think, look, the future of this is like, if you look at communities such as ours, we have this collection of insane marketing talent that is hard to quantify, right? So you could go to a mini MBA and obviously there's some marketing expert here, but there's 350 marketing experts. It's very early days with this, but I think using platforms like Notion to try to sort of build up this brain, this kind of crowdsourced brain of information. I'm really interested in that topic, and it's something I tinker around with when I get a little bit of spare time. But I think that's potentially where it can go. It's like a case of how can you use all of this insight to try to build something that people can tap into, as opposed to just each time asking, saying, can I have an answer to this? And some people respond, some people don't, because they've already answered that question. I think that's where it then continues to develop, because you have the context and you have the experience in one type of place. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think that the tech to make that possible that's very imminent, I think.
I think one other thing just to add is that often at conferences and courses, the most valuable part is meeting your cohorts, those in similar roles, and the conversations around the actual talks. And that's what we're trying to bring together.
Perfect. And just lastly, are there 3 areas where you feel like if people aren't in these communities or groups that they can really learn from, or like a pitch to join yours?
We've got 350 experts in marketing across all different industries, B2B, B2C, different specialities. So there's always something to learn. What I would say is if you're going to join a community, it's about give to get. So I think that you need to be prepared to give, and you've always got something to give: knowledge, experience, support, as well as a huge opportunity to learn and ask for support and insights too.
Definitely. And that's one of my mantras as well. It's like, look, if you give, you will receive multiple folds of that. And that's giving with your time, that's giving you your support, that's giving your information. It's like, think about the other communities that don't work and how they interact, right? And as I say, it's whether that's at events, whether that's insight, whether that's supporting, whether that's buying merch, whatever that is, it's just like a case of it does take a village to achieve these things. And when we see people that now take CMO Circle and they put it on their LinkedIn and they tell the world that they're part of that, like, that's a really cool feeling. But it needs that, because people to understand, like, this is something that I am part of, that I want to protect. I want to protect the art of marketing and the people that are in it, and I want to help grow it for the right reasons. That's what you need to do. And again, some people message us and go, I'm really, really sorry, I haven't been participating in stuff, but I'm looking like it's fine. Like, it's absolutely fine, right? Because some people are like, oh, I wanted to weigh in, but the conversations go this, and it's fine, right? But it's just understanding that it's just, you can really play a part of this because you have so much knowledge and information that you can give to this that everyone else will benefit from.
I think the last thing as well is when you join a community, it's so helpful if you can introduce yourself, share what you can offer and what you'd like to learn. So, I'm an expert in product marketing. I'm really keen to learn more about the B2C side, or I'm really keen to learn more about AI. And that just really helps us understand how we can best get you involved in the group.
All right, to wrap up, shall we give you a little chance to promo the community, and where can people apply to join?
So the CMOcircle.com is the best place to apply to join. It's open to senior marketing leaders that have B2B facing, as what what I mean, experience in that have kind of been in that world when they've been working client side. Yeah, take a look at the website, fill in an application. check it out, and hopefully it's for you.
Yeah, if you want to build out your network of senior marketing leaders and are keen to learn, upskill, and also share your own insights and experiences, come join.
Perfect. And where should people find you more specifically if they want to talk to you directly?
Find me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you very much to you both. Hopefully this helps a lot of people wanting either to join or to potentially help add a little bit more insight and knowledge into these groups.